Jonathan Rosenthal is our next speaker. He's the director of the Ecological Research Institute in Kingston, New York, which originated and coordinates the monitoring and managing ash program. He's a widely recognized expert on invasive species and has been especially active in public outreach for emerald ash borer management and ash conservation since 2014. Welcome, Jonathan.
Hi, thank you for welcoming me. And in 2014, we were located in Kingston, but now we're in New Paltz. So we're a little bit closer to
A little
Westchester
closer,
now.
yep.
Yeah, we're not moving quite as fast as the EAB, but we're moving southward. So thank you for the introduction, and thank you everyone for hosting me. And I will try to get through a bunch of slides and hopefully not go too quickly. And so this entire presentation is on, I just have to do a little housekeeping here on the screen so I can see my own slides, is on the monitoring and managing ash program. It's an overview of it. And we have the acronym MaMA. And from now on, I'm just going to be referring to this as MaMA, but when I'm referring to MaMA, I'm referring to this program and nothing else. And this presentation was put together by me, along with our senior scientist, Dr. Radka Vildova. So I'm doing the presenting, but she's every bit as much of a partner in this presentation as I am. Now, hopefully it will advance, which doesn't seem to be happening. Let's see. There we go. So, okay. So EAB, again, I don't know how much knowledge people are bringing to this presentation. So I'm going to go through this with some background material, just in case some folks are not yet aware. So emerald ash borer EAB arrived from China. It first became established in North America in the Detroit, Michigan, Windsor, Ontario area in the 1990s after importation in solid wood packing materials, such as these items you see on the left here, shipping crates and shipping pallets. And as you can see, it's quite a small beetle. It's about 1/2 inch in length. And we'll discuss what makes it so menacing. So it spreads quite well because the adults are good flyers. They can fly up to tens of miles, and they're also really good at hitchhiking on vehicles. The larvae are hidden beneath the bark and are transported with logs and firewood. And the infestations begin very high in the trees. They generally start at the tops of trees and work their way down, where they're very difficult to see. So the infestations usually are not detected until late in the infestation. And just a quick side note here is that it's really important, as I'm sure many of you have heard, to not move firewood around, not just because of EAB, but many other invasive forest pests are moved with firewood, but simply not moving firewood will not stop the spread of this particular pest, just because it's really good at hitchhiking on vehicles, and it's really quite good at flying and finding stands of ash trees to infest. Since the 90s, it's spread as far as west as Colorado and throughout basically the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic and much of the Southeast and so forth. And this is just where it's been detected. And it's always likely there's a lag in detection, so it may have even spread farther than this. The local situation, here's data that was just up to date through 2020. We're in the process of updating some maps. And the interesting thing here, if you look down, I'm focusing on Westchester, just given our hosts. And if you look down here in Westchester, you see that, it's kind of spotty down there in 2020, and certainly spread since then, and certainly every location is not reported. But the message that comes out of this, which we've seen from our research, is often people have the impression that it's already everywhere and that all the ash trees everywhere are already dying from it. And that's not the case, that it tends to be more of like a patchwork or a mosaic of places that are heavily infested and some places that are not infested at all, or somewhere in between, which has real management implications and conservation implications. So here we go. So EAB kills, it kills, sorry, there's a typo here, kills, it doesn't kill larvae. The EAB larvae kill by eating the phloem, which is just beneath the bark, outer bark of the tree, girdling trees and basically blocking their circulatory system and it eventually starves the tree to death by girdling the tree. And you can get tens of thousands of EAB larvae in a given tree at peak infestation. So it's not just a single larva that's making these tracks, excavating the phloem beneath the bark, but thousands of them, which effectively prevent movement of essential materials throughout the tree. Typically upwards of 99% mortality for widespread Northeast ash species. These are the white ash, green ash, and black. Certainly in Westchester, the predominant ash there is white. There are some ash of other species, but it's overwhelmingly white ash. And upwards of 99% mortality. There's not a lot of way to go up from that, right? So we're very close to 100% mortality, and that can cause hopelessness, and which in turn can cause inaction and people just kind of giving up and thinking that, our ash are all doomed and there's nothing we can do about it. But as you'll see, there's a lot you can do about it. And there's a real problem with this not advancing here. But anyway, my slides I'm referring to there. So however, lingering ash provide hope. And some of you are probably already aware of the term lingering ash. Probably many of you are not. So lingering ash there's a very technical definition for them. It's the rare individuals that stay healthy at least 2 years after at least 95% of the nearby ash have been killed by EAB. So in other words, when close to all the adult ash have been killed by EAB, if you find adult individuals that are still perfectly healthy, then those trees are lingering ash, and they likely, or there's a chance that they harbor some genetic resistance to EAB. And so lingering ash have been found for all 3 widespread Northeast ash species: white ash, green ash, and black ash. Doctors Jennifer Cook and Kathleen Knight of the U.S. Forest Service, along with their colleagues, have been using material from lingering ash to yield highly EAB resistant native ash. So it's crucial that what they're doing is generating native ash of these species. In particular, they've been focused on green ash, but we're hoping that this is can also be done for white and black. And in fact, it has already. They've found lingering ash for all 3 species, but till now their breeding efforts for the most part have been focused on green ash. And I'll just briefly outline how they're doing this. So what they do is they collect scion from lingering ash. And so scion, for those of you who are unfamiliar, just means twigs. They're just cutting twigs off the lingering ash. Here you see a lingering ash, a perfectly healthy ash that's surrounded by dead trees. And they're cutting a little twig off, and they are then grafting it onto rootstock and developing what we call clonal progeny from the lingering ash. In other words, these trees, especially the upper part of it, right, above the graft, is all genetically identical to that lingering ash from which it was taken. And so from a given particular lingering ash, they'll collect quite a large amount of scion, and then they can graft out multiple identical trees. And then what the next step is, they place a pre-counted number of EAB eggs on the trees and assess to what extent these EAB eggs can go through all the larval stages and progress to adulthood as EAB. And in some of the lingering ash, some of their clonal progeny will show that they're killing a large percentage of the EAB eggs and larvae before they can complete development to adults. And so then they take those that are most successful at killing those, at killing the EAB, and then cross them. They do cross-pollination of taking one of these females and a male and pollinating them, because ash have male and female trees, and then take the seeds of those and raise them, and then repeat this for multiple generations. So this is just good old artificial selection, right? The same thing that we would do if you're trying to improve a variety of an apple tree or any other, or a rose bush or whatnot. So what they're taking advantage of is this very intense natural selection of finding those trees that are healthy. Typically it's less than 1%. It can be 0.1% of trees that are proven to be lingering ash and are healthy when the rest of the trees around them have been killed. And so they're taking advantage of that natural selection to reveal the trees that likely have some genetic resistance. And then they're doing this artificial selection to accelerate evolution, in a sense, and yield highly EAB resistant trees, which provide great promise for restoration of ash in forests, in natural areas, and also eventually as street trees and landscape trees. So here we see what they've done here. And just this little photo here on the right shows an EAB larva that's been killed by a lingering ash. So that has been essentially entombed. It's been calloused over by the growth responses of the tree, kind of sealing it in a little space where it cannot progress and do more damage to the tree, and in turn killing the larva off. So if you can imagine, if the tree is successful at doing this with a very high percentage of its larvae, it has a really good chance of remaining healthy. And why? Okay. Here, having a lot of trouble advancing my slides. Resistance, I cannot see my own slide here. Let's see if I can. Okay, resistance to EAB is likely needed even if biocontrol agents are established, as shown by EAB's devastation of North American ash species planted in Asia, despite EAB's natural enemies already being there. So I think you're all experts now on biocontrol, having seen Mark Whitmore's presentation, and he's a phenomenal expert on biocontrol. And what happens in kind of a natural situation where a pest has first evolved is that its host, the pest, and the control agents, the predators of that pest, all co-evolve together and kind of maintain a balance. And so what's important, for instance, in China, where EAB is native, is that not only are there natural enemies of the EAB that can control EAB, but also the trees there that have the native Chinese ash have a great deal of resistance to EAB. So what we're trying to do here is to build up the genetic resistance of ash trees here, and then that, along with biocontrol, it's not either or, can kind of replicate that situation that would be found in Asia, where the ash trees have resistance to the pest, and the pest is also controlled to some extent by its natural enemies. So really, at least in the case of ash, the long-term conservation approach is resistance plus biocontrol. And the slide is not advancing. Let's try this. Nope. So we need to find scion from locally adapted lingering ash throughout the range of ash. And that's because the resistance is a function of how resistance to any pest is a function of how overall healthy that tree is in its given environment. And if we, for instance, just relied upon the lingering ash that have already been found by our partners in the USFS at their field station in Ohio, and we were to try to use Ohio lingering ash and grow them in New York or Massachusetts or what have you, they probably wouldn't do very well because they're adapted to their local environment, and their resistance would not be very high. So we need to have locally adapted lingering ash from throughout the range of all these different ash species. And the other thing is we need a lot of genetic diversity. We don't want to have the situation where all the ash that are eventually planted out into nature or into the landscape are genetically identical, or where there's a very limited genetic variation, because that will just be setting things up for the next pest to come through and really ravage a monoculture in essence. So if we're trying to find cyan, we're trying to find lingering ash from throughout the vast range of North American ash species. And given the rarity of the lingering ash, which, as I said, is often less than 1% of the trees growing out there, it means looking for very rare needles in very vast haystacks. And it can't be done by professional scientists alone. So we need citizen science. And so MaMA integrates the search for lingering ash into an overall ash EAB management strategy. And crucially, there are important tasks for all areas, from those yet uninvaded to those where virtually all the ash are dead. And I want to emphasize this point because, as I said before, what will often happen is people will get the impression all the ash are dead in my area, or they're all going to die and there's nothing I can do about it. And as you'll see, actually, when things have advanced to the stage where almost all the ash are dead, that's really a crucial stage where you can make crucial contributions by searching for lingering ash. So here we have tasks for each stage of EAB infestation, going from pre-infestation, where EAB is not yet present, early infestation, mid-infestation, and late infestation, where the ash are largely dead, with the remainder very unhealthy, except for the very rare lingering ash. And I don't have enough time to go through this in any detail, but the crucial thing is there are those tasks at each stage. And some of you may be from places where EAB has not yet shown up. Some may be, at the mid stage of invasion where trees are starting to die off, and some where almost all the ash are dead, almost all. And if you were to search diligently, you may be able to find a few trees, healthy adult trees that would represent lingering ash. And it's really important to find those for cyan collection, and also to collect seed from those particular individual trees. Come on, move. So the search for lingering ash really affects the management choices for trees. Here we have our decision tree, which integrates a long-term conservation perspective into ash management. And those two squares on those two rectangles on the left, the one in red and the one in blue, those are the typical choices that people think of in terms of managing ash when confronted with EAB. And that's either cutting potential hazard trees. People generally think of the two possible responses are either cutting trees or chemically treating trees. And that trees that you're neither cutting nor treating are just trees that are left over to die. And they're kind of emblematic of your inadequacy as a land manager, that you're not doing anything about these trees. But in reality, whereas cutting trees is really appropriate in some cases if they're potential hazard trees, and you can't, and it's impractical to treat them with pesticides, or in very few cases, cutting ash trees can help maintain particular habitat types, or if you need to harvest some trees for economic or cultural purposes, then cutting is appropriate. Treating is appropriate with chemicals if the tree has a special role in the landscape and treatment is practical and affordable. But the third option, which we have here, really in a way, this green option all the way on the right, is leaving some trees that you neither cut nor treat because you need to, they serve two purposes. One is for mortality monitoring, and one is for lingering ash detection. And what we mean by mortality monitoring, as you'll see, the MaMA includes a citizen science project called MaMA Monitoring Plots Network, where you set aside a certain number of trees And and these are citizen scientists and land managers doing this. We have this whole network of plots where we're tracking the mortality rates of these ash trees as the EAB sweeps through the area. And we can see then when that 95% mortality threshold is reached, and then you know that remaining healthy ash trees in that area are lingering ash, right? And so that's one thing, using them for mortality monitoring plots. And the other thing is overall lingering ash detection. If you do not leave enough ash trees standing, you're not going to be able to find any lingering ash trees. So I'll emphasize this point as follows. It's something not to do. So is to just go out and proactively cut down all your healthy ash trees. And this is for a couple of reasons. It has been advocated by some folks to just go out and cut down all your ash tree, even if they're healthy, because presumably that will slow the spread of EAB. And in fact, because EAB is a directed flyer that can fly great distances to find the next stand of ash tree to infest, when you're cutting down ash trees that are their potential food source, you're actually accelerating the spread rate because they'll actually fly further. So don't do it for that purpose. But the other thing is that every healthy ash tree that you cut down, you'll never know if that could have ultimately turned out to be a lingering ash, right? So we're not against cutting any ash trees, and we recognize that it's really important for some economic and cultural purposes, but we want to make sure that there are enough healthy ash trees left standing so that we can see some of them, the vast majority will probably decline and die to EAB, but we can then also find those remaining needles in the haystack that are those last healthy ash trees standing. So hopefully I've made that point clearly enough. So now it's time for question one.
All right, let's get it going. So question number one. To slow the spread of EAB, you should proactively cut down as many healthy ash trees as possible. True or false? All right, we got about 30, we're going up. Everyone's answering this one. So remember, if you're here for credits for ISA or landscape architect, please make sure that you're answering this question, just because it's what we do to gauge if you are here. And if you want to just try it out and see what you have to say, even if you're not getting any credits, please feel free to answer. We'll give it another maybe 10 seconds. We're slowly getting some more people in. Okay, well, it looks like so far you have 100% of people putting false.
And should I reveal the right answer? Or?
Yeah, let's do it.
You all got it right. Yay. Big hand for everybody. Okay, you were paying attention. Excellent. So we're not going to have folks clear cutting their ash proactively. I'm happy that. And we've when we started this project, MaMA, this program, we thought all we had to do was the science and get out there and arrange for data collection and so forth. And now we realized that just as important is reaching out to people about how to manage their ash trees, so they wouldn't do things that then prevented ultimate detection of lingering ash. So we found that this management outreach is an essential component of the program. Can I close this box now, or do you need to close that?
Absolutely, you can close it on your screen.
All right. Yay. Okay. I'm having a big problem advancing the slides, but hopefully I can advance here. I don't know. Hopefully. Let's see. I don't know what's going on. There we go.
Got it.
So I have to hit it about 10 times to get it to advance. So the MaMA website, which is monitoringash.org. It's actually www, unsurprisingly, .monitoringash.org. It includes information on and links to the tools for all appropriate steps from pre-invasion to high mortality situations. So these are management steps and also citizen science, program steps. Participants can explore the full range of actions and fit them into an overall ASH EAB management plan. because again, our program emphasizes long-term ash conservation and restoration, but you may have questions about, I have a hazard tree that's about to topple on my house. What should I do about it? You should inject it, or well, you should really probably just cut it down. Or if you have money to throw around, maybe you can inject it with the appropriate insecticide. But so we realize that not everyone is just primarily a conservationist, so you can fit it into your overall management goals. It has links to 3 MaMA projects, all of which are hosted on the anecdata.org platform. And we have links to free training webinars, which run the gamut from how to recognize ash and how to recognize signs of EAB to how to participate in our mortality monitoring plots program and so forth. I mentioned, so there we have these 3 projects, MaMA Ash EAB surveys, MaMA Monitoring Plots Network, and MaMA Lingering Ash Search. And I mentioned that these are all on the anecdata.org platform. So just a quick thing, this is a super rigorous platform that was created by the Mount Desert Island Biological Research Laboratory as a platform to support rigorous scientific research. We can do statistical analysis, we can do spatial analysis with these data, which cannot be done, for example, with data in iNaturalist or many other citizen science programs. And all of NASA's citizen science programs are on the anecdata.org platform because it's so rigorous. And we work closely with Anecdata to develop customized apps and so forth for our particular projects. So these are the 3 projects. You can look at our website and see how to upload these and so forth. Data recording and submitting is easy. You can use paper forms. You can use smartphones. You can use computers. If you're good at writing on cuneiform tablets, we're willing to accept those as well. The data from the MaMA citizen science projects are used by ERI, that's us, to locate lingering ash and to create action maps showing what you can and should do based on the EAB invasion history and ash health at your location. So there's a geo-referenced Lower Hudson MaMA action map. Again, I'm emphasizing this because the webinar is hosted in Westchester, and you can use it to see what actions are prioritized for your location, including whether you're in an area that's ready to be searched for lingering ash. In other words, an area where that 95% ash mortality threshold was already reached at least 2 years ago. And so if you want to download this geo-referenced map, go to this link, monitoringash.org, Lower Hudson, and you can download this to your smartphone. And then you can find your current location on the map by opening the map using a particular app, and you'll see right where you are on that map, and you'll see, based on that map, what are the best actions you can do for ash conservation and ash management. I will give you a quick warning here that we still have not updated our maps from this year's data and so forth. So, but you can still, just for fun, if you want to, open one of these, we'll be updating over the winter. But if you want to open this and see where you are on this map and what the priority actions are, at least as of last year, you'll be able to do that. And this is what the map will look like. It's color coded and uses data from various sources. But you'll see, for instance, right up here around Saugerties, Kingston, this is where EAB was first detected in 2010 to 2012. And here you already have super high mortality. You can see probably this tiny little number here. I think it's 98%. That's where one of our mortality monitoring plots is. And that's that's the percentage of ash that have been killed by EAB in our monitoring plot there. And you can see all these different plots scattered across the region. Here you have one down here that had 100% EAB, 100% ash mortality due to EAB. And I just, there's some here, for instance, here's one, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but there's one down here that's just 2%. So there's quite a range in mortalities. And obviously the areas where it's longer been been longer infested, you have much higher mortalities. And those areas that are kind of color coded, that kind of ochre color, those are areas that are ready to be searched for EAB. This is also an out-of-date map. So we are in the process of updating it, but these areas have spread. So probably all these green areas are now ready to be searched for lingering ash as time passes and the beetle also spreads. So you can see what actions are appropriate for your area. So the easiest citizen science project of ours to participate in is the MaMA ASH/EAB surveys. It tracks progress of EAB invasion, again, because there are areas where we don't even know if EAB is there or not. This can be done in less than 10 minutes. All you need to be able to do is recognize ash trees. You don't even need to be able to distinguish between ash species, and you need to be able to recognize EAB signs. We have guides for both of these tasks, recognizing ash, recognizing EAB, on our website. And it's a very quick thing to do, and it's really essential. Again, everybody kind of assumes that EAB is everywhere, or that state agencies are collecting data on this, and state agencies are overwhelmed with all sorts of other stuff going on, and kind of deprioritized EAB mapping. So if you do this, it's a great help, and it helps us form our maps. Just moving on here. Next is the Monitoring Plots Network. It's the only standardized, widespread. We have plots all the way from Illinois to Vermont right now, and we're actually in the process of a major expansion. Assessment of EAB-induced ash mortality. It determines when areas are ready to be searched for lingering ash. It also provides information on site-to-site variation and mortality trajectories. So for instance, we're finding that certain kinds of environments and so forth greatly accelerate mortality, some slow it, and it's not like a one-size-fits-all mortality trajectory for every ash tree in every location. And they often reveal misperceptions about local mortality due to EAB. And what I mean by this, and it's particularly relevant in your neck of the woods, is we'll often have people tell us, oh, EAB has killed all the ash in our area, or EAB has infested all of them, and they're really bad shape. And in the process of setting up a mortality monitoring plot, where you're seeing how many trees are infested and what their health is, you're carefully checking these trees. And we've had at a couple of places, actually many places, where folks have said that EAB has killed all the trees. And we'll find that EAB hasn't killed any of the trees. And maybe what's killed the trees is something else, like ash yellows, which is a disease. And there's actually no evidence of EAB at the site. Or we'll often find, when people say EAB has killed all the trees, that maybe about 40% of the trees are dead, and another 40% are alive, but not in great shape, and maybe only 20% have been killed. And why does that matter? That matters because the timing of the search for the lingering ash is really crucial. If you go and search for lingering ash in an area that has not yet reached and maintained that 95% mortality threshold, you're going to get a lot of trees that are not truly lingering ash. And it would mean wasting a lot of money and time and so forth collecting scion from these trees and trying to propagate them and so forth, because they're not truly lingering ash and don't really have a high level of resistance. So setting up MaMA monitoring plots also has another benefit. It provides focal points for outreach efforts. So we have lots and lots of institutional partners that have hosted these plots, and they'll often have a big event where their volunteers and membership and stuff will come, and their professional staff, and help set up the monitoring plots. So it's a great outreach opportunity. And we've had, all ages, all kinds of people involved in these, and then they get really invested in ash conservation and in conservation more generally. And the MaMA monitoring plots, you just, quote, set up a plot of at least 40 ash meeting certain criteria, which I'm not going to get into here. I don't have the time for this. And your only commitment is not to cut any of those individuals until they've died, because we have to see when they die and whether it's from EAB. And so that's one commitment. The other is until the trees reach that 95% mortality threshold from EAB, you're checking their health and infestation yearly. And typically the initial setup of a plot will take half a day at most, but the follow-ups will often take just a couple of hours. And the amount of time that you need to invest in monitoring a plot generally decreases each year because you're only checking the remaining living trees. And as the trees get killed off by EAB, the time involved shrinks substantially. And some plots are one and done. Like if you go and find an area where truly all the trees have died or virtually all the trees have already been killed by EAB, all you need to do is document that one time. You never have to go back there. And again, this is really crucial data.
You have about 5 minutes left.
Okay, so to find lingering ash, search areas, as I mentioned, are done after the mortality threshold is reached, and we determine that based on the data that we get. And as I mentioned, that's shown, the action maps can really help you. We'll also send alerts. We'll post alerts, send alerts, and so forth about areas that are ready to be searched for lingering ash. Come on. So time for question 2.
All right, let's get it going. So it is up. So again, if you're here for credit, make sure that you're answering it, please. And if not, feel free to answer it anyway. We'll give it about a minute. Got about 20-30% of people have answered it so far. And it's just using current methods. Lingering ash can only be detected in an area after almost all the mature ashes have been dead due to EAB for at least 2 years. We'll give it another 10 seconds. We got about 53% of people responding. Okay. So let me end the poll as I stall for an extra 5 seconds. So you had 89% of people say true and 11 say false.
And in this case, again, first we had unanimity. This time we have the vast majority of folks are right. It's true that, again, you can only detect actual lingering ash once at least 95% of the mature ash have been dead for at least 2 years. Otherwise, you'll find specious lingering ash. And I say current methods because one thing we're working on is also working on genomics and other stuff to potentially come up with shortcuts where you can take a sample from a tree and determine if it's a lingering ash. But current methods, this is a true statement. So I'm going to close this and advance. So frustrating. But the time is ticking and I'm stuck on this slide. I don't know what to do.
It seemed to work last time. It took a minute.
It worked
was after the
eventually.
questions.
Right. It's there we go.
Oh, there you go.
So here we have searching for lingering ash in the lower Hudson Valley. Pictured here, we have Arden Blumenthal, who some of you may be familiar with. She works with the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference and the Lower Hudson Prism and does lots of stuff with dogs to detect invasive plants, but she also has worked on our project looking for lingering ash, and you see her looking very thoroughly, and she in fact found quite a few lingering ash, which are part of our total of at least 20 lingering ash. So as of last year, we had about 20. We're looking at the data from this year, lingering ash that have been found in the Hudson Valley. So these are the first lingering ash found outside of Ohio or Michigan, because our USFS partners were working in the proximity of their research station in Ohio, and the only lingering ash that had been found were there. So this is huge news in terms of ash conservation. And the next step we're going to be working on is arranging for scion collection and propagation of trees, hopefully highly resistant, go through the whole selection process and propagation process. And we need to find more. The search area is expanding over time. As I mentioned, those areas that have not been infested as long as those initial core areas, those are now also have been infested long enough that we're likely to have those high mortality rates that they're eligible for search. And we need to find as many as possible. And why is that? That's because, again, ash trees, you have male trees and female trees. We need to find both sexes for these. We need to find them across environmental variation, so from wet sites and dry sites and so forth, so that we can ultimately yield lots of trees to be planted that will do well in a variety of circumstances, and that we have enough to have a lot of genetic variation. And to accomplish this, it's up to you, right? So hopefully some of you will get involved. And if you want to get involved, sorry, went in the wrong direction now. If you want to get involved, and if you're even just potentially interested in any of MaMA's citizen science projects, or learning how to manage ash for long-term conservation, or even just how to manage your ash in general, how to deal with EAB, contact us at sorry, that's where the www ended up, where it shouldn't be. That's just an email address, outreach. So just email us at outreach@monitoringash.org. And I want to thank our hosts for this webinar, who I know are CCE Westchester County, and also I believe the Westchester County Soil and Water Conservation District. And I believe there's some involvement from the Native Plant Center as well. And also our many partner institutions. We now have at least 40 partner institutions. The Nature Conservancy for funding our ongoing work as part of the Trees in Peril initiative, which is a new large-scale initiative, which I'd love to talk about, but don't have time to do so. And also thank all of our MaMA program participants, who I'm sure, at this point, number in the hundreds, who have gone out there and collected data and so forth for us. So thanks to all of you.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. That was wonderful. So there were a few questions. People were asking about the link and about the email. So if you needed the link, it was put into the chat. And there was a couple questions about if someone feels that they have a lingering ash, what they should do, but you did a wonderful job answering that. So I put the outreach at monitoringash.org in the chat as well, so that you can reach out if you believe that you have a lingering ash, and go from there and see kind of where it takes. There was another question, and it was, what is the sign grafted onto?
So that's a great question. So what it's grafted onto is actually a susceptible native ash rootstock. And the reason that it's grafted onto susceptible rootstock is there are various different mechanisms by which resistance can be achieved, right? And by which trees can kill the bugs that are trying to kill them. And potentially, so there are physical mechanisms, as I showed, where that larva was entombed in a callus, it was calloused over, but there can also be chemical responses and so forth. And suppose you had a resistant rootstock, right, that was really good at exuding some chemical that kills the EAB larvae, right? And you then grew your potential lingering ash scion, you grafted it onto that rootstock, and it turned out to be really, all those EAB larvae are dying. And it may have nothing to do with that top part, with that scion that you grafted onto it. It may all be from chemicals that are being exuded by the resistant rootstock. So that's why non-resistant susceptible rootstock is used. And so for green ash, at least in the case of green ash, it's susceptible green ash rootstock. And one thing that's done for it, though, is also you're making sure then to just look at the responses of the scion portion of the tree rather than the rootstock. And the EAB are not actually attacking the rootstock. And one thing that can be done to prevent that is actually very local application of things to chemicals to prevent the EAB from attacking the rootstock itself.
Awesome. And there's one other question. If you could explain the genetics that go on between the lingering ash versus what might be attacked more. Is there any significance there?
So I'm not sure if I fully understand the question, but I can just give you a general answer about the genetics of the lingering ash. So a lot of folks think of resistance as being, all or none, right? Like it's an on switch, off switch, and either you're a resistant tree or you're not, and it turns out that resistance to EAB in ash trees is governed by what's called quantitative inheritance. It's a lot of different genes that control it. It's kind of like for human height, like it's not a single gene. And so kind of the more of those resistance genes you have, the more resistant you are, the less. So there's like basically a continuum. Okay. And so what that means is that typically the lingering ash, when the testing is then done, that assessment, they're not 100, they don't kill 100% of the larvae, right? They're not like, they don't have this 100% resistance. They're killing a certain proportion, which may be, 25 or 30 or 40 or 50%, some, or maybe more percent of the larvae. And you're then taking that and crossing that with another individual, right? With other lingering ash, grafted lingering ash that are from that same general location of that same species, right? We're not doing interspecies, we're not hybridizing. And so we're crossing with something else that should be adapted to that local area. And you're crossing that, and then you're doing that selection generation after generation. And one thing that this can do is enable what we call layered defenses, because there are all these different possible defensive mechanisms, which can be chemical or physical and so forth, and layering those so that you can get individuals that have maybe a chemical defense and that have a physical defense and so forth, and the best of their offspring will have both of those defenses, right? And then you're doing that another generation and so forth. So that's my general answer about the genetics, is that it's quantitative, and that it enables layering of different mechanisms, defensive mechanisms.